In order not to miss the next story, subscribe to the channel below this video, and don't forget to give your likes and share your opinions in the comments. Dear listeners, make yourselves comfortable. Today we are waiting for an interesting story. I will tell you about my life. We have been married for 4 years. Everything was great. Normal life, like many people and many families. I work, my wife worked, we don't have kids yet. My wife and I are the same age, 30 years old. Everything was going well for us. I'll be honest with you, my wife and I always hung out together. If we drank together too. All in all, it was a good, happy family. I did not dote on my wife, I did not go to clubs, I never cheated, I always slept at home. We wanted a child in the future, and to make repairs, we lived in my 3-room apartment. But then one day, we were at a friend's house. We were relaxing, having fun, drinking. Everything was in moderation. We got home. It was the middle of the night. I went to bed, but my wife told me that she would stay up for a while and then she would come back. I didn't pay much attention to this as I absolutely trusted it. I woke up at about 8 in the morning. I see that my wife is not here. I go to the room where the computer is. She is sitting at the computer, typing on the keyboard. "Bring me in." She sharply began to close all the windows on the monitor. I immediately noted this to myself. I asked her, "What do you do here?" She answered, "I was just surfing the web, reading all kinds of rubbish." After a while she went to bed, but I kept waiting till I could sit at the computer and look at her browsing history. It was extremely unclear to me what one could do on the internet until morning, what kind of news a person was so interested in. And what I found shocked me. She had gotten on the website male dating or something like that. I don't remember now. And she began to send some men poems, and the men answered her something in return. In general, she didn't manage to talk to all of them, but one guy wrote back something adequate, and they started corresponding. The conversation turned to sex, or rather, to discuss it. And then my wife writes, "It's just that sex with her husband is uninspiring." I'm so fucked. Next, they accused each other with pictures and kind of even wanted to meet. Picked a place, but the guy left. And so it remained unclear. The very fact that she is a married woman, so frankly writes, it is unclear to whom, I just put into a stupor. I did not wait for anything, just went, woke up, and showed it all. She stared for a long time, pretended not to understand anything, and then began to ask for forgiveness. Like, I was drunk and so on and so forth. There just wasn't enough communication. I thought about it for a long time and wanted to kick her out, but the fact that she was drunk and that this was virtual shit and women sometimes have fun like that came into play. Anyway, I believed it myself and forgave her. We moved on with our lives, and I started to forget about it a little bit. But trust was already shattered. I was subconsciously expecting something like this. It took about 5 months for the other thing to happen. My wife got a new job and worked there for about 4 months. One evening, after work, I was sitting at the computer, can't remember what I was doing there, playing poker I think. My wife was sitting next to me, Skyping someone on her phone. I asked, "Who with?" The answer was a girlfriend. All right, I believed her, but I decided to check it out. In the evening, I decided to look through her phone, found her dialogue with her girlfriend. But it was so brief, she sat and texted for 2 hours exactly. I noticed that my wife started tearing up at the computer a lot more and was constantly Skyping there. His history was not being saved forcibly, that's what was bothering me. And there were times when I suddenly walked into the room and she immediately started clicking and closing something urgently. I got hooked thoroughly. I put a program on my computer, Spy. The program captures all keystrokes and takes screenshots of the screen. I set it up and gave my wife access to the computer and started waiting. Sometime later, when I got home early, I decided to use the program and see who and what she was chatting with. And it was full Alice. Her correspondence was a stepping stone from work and had been going on for about a month. This dick is the head of some department at her job. They were chatting on Skype and at work on Skype. The prick was in the hospital at the time. In the correspondence from my wife were going phrases like how much I missed you, how I want to kiss you, my kitty cat, and so on. Reading this was Adam. I began to bide my time and gather information, and every day behind my back, while I was sleeping or in the shower, she would write him something. Or he to her, and she wrote him like, I can't answer now. My husband often comes into the room. So he knew she was married, and it wasn't the secret. Handsome. One night, I went to a friend's house for a beer. Came home around 1:00 a.m., turned on the computer, and it went on again. The correspondence was about how she was going to visit him in the hospital and how she missed him. I couldn't take it anymore. My wife, whom I loved so much, had the audacity to lie behind my back and not a shred of shame about it. My wife was asleep. I came in and miraculously restrained myself from cracking her. The rage was just raging, plus the alcohol. I pulled off the blanket and shouted, "Get up," and took her to show her the labors of her duplicitous life. "Where did you get that?" That was the first thing she said. She began to tell him that they had met at work about 2 months earlier. He started hitting on her, and she gave in because I wasn't paying attention to her. It's pretty straightforward. Said that nothing happened between them, that he tried to kiss her a couple of times in the subway, but she kind of dodged it. I just couldn't believe it all. It seemed like it couldn't be, like it was crazy. But alas, this is the truth of life. The marriage was falling apart before my eyes. Then I was running around the apartment, yelling something and making her pack up and get the fuck out of my house. She left with a little bit of her stuff. I'll tell you, she didn't make much of an excuse. Most of the time, she just kept quiet. There were no tears from her, no sincerity, unfortunately. That same day, I got on her Skype and started texting this guy under her guise. Anyway, somehow he burned me right away. Apparently, she had already told him. This guy turned out to be married. He had up to 4 years, but he assured me that it was all a misunderstanding and type of just a flirt, nothing more. And out of his pity, he started writing that he didn't know she was married. He was such a jerk. I had screenshots of their correspondence and a lot of things interesting for his wife, which I, incidentally, and passed his wife literally a few days, finding her in contact. About 2 weeks went by. I was living alone. My wife called and said she wanted to talk. We talked. I had already calmed down. She started to apologize, said it was a mistake, that this dick was ignoring her, and that she was so guilty. I didn't believe her, but for some reason I forgave her. Except I wondered if they had or hadn't. I ended up forgiving her like an idiot again. I just apparently love her and understand myself that this relationship will never work out. But the pain is gone. The residue is still there. That's why I live in stress all the time. I forgive her, but I cannot and do not want to believe her. Constantly checking her phone, in general, developed a paranoid personality with all that it implies. I do not want to live like this. Now I'm just looking for an excuse to send her away forever, divorce, and start life anew. So that's the story, a cry from the soul. Remember I told you that I once went to a friend of mine for a beer. Anyway, he told me his life story in a nutshell. And I probably should have done the same. I'm gonna tell it to you in the first person. I am 31, my wife is 26, married for 5 years with a son. I have 2 businesses, a job, a car, an apartment. I keep working, everything was great, I provided for everything. Naturally, I loved and lived and worked for my family. Of course I worked a lot, till 8 p.m. as standard, plus 1 day off. I always tried to give my wife and son my full attention, and I built up my happy future in my head until my death. I wanted to have a second child, and 5 months ago, I found out he was cheating. I did not even think about cheating. It felt like my soul was spat upon, scorched, and then empty. For 2 weeks, I lived like in a bad dream, slept at my parents' house. Then 2 months later, I met a very nice girl. Most importantly, I was able to pull myself together for a new relationship. Now I am a new person, and so far I am doing well. My girlfriend, just what fairy tales. Smart, beautiful, the kind of sex I never had with her at all. Sometimes I feel like fate is laughing at me. Everything that was missing in my ex is in the new person. I made conclusions, sent my wife away, although I loved her very much and spit on all her faults. And I started all over again with a man who was better than my ex in every way. My wife, of course, asked me to forgive, but I cannot live with a traitor. I even slept with her once after the betrayal, but I realized that I could never get it back. Dear men, if you know your worth, if you are betrayed, send such wives, such creatures away. And if you were cheated when everything was good, or God forbid, what happens to you, you will be betrayed. Without thinking at all, do you understand that? That's why I never cease to affirm, cheating cannot be forgiven. No woman, no man, no wife, no husband, no cheating has no place in a relationship. Naturally, I was wrong. There can be a place for cheating, but only as a point in that very relationship. So please subscribe to the channel, share these videos with your friends you know, and primarily with people who have had a similar situation or worse are going on right now. Through these stories, they will be able to understand how to do the right thing. They can realize that this in their case is not the worst thing that could happen. It is for this reason that the Fate Drama channel has compiled the most aggravated cases of wife cheating. Of course, it's not just the wives that sometimes occur, but for the most part it is. Men, hang in there. Women, please be faithful and supportive. And most importantly, be honest with each other in your relationships. Good health to you, and see you soon.